NC Pork, raising the bacon, raising the bar. Welcome to NCSN Live from the ACC Tournament, presented by Stitch Golf. Dress your game. Before we get to all of the action here in the Queen City on Friday, let's start with a quick look around the bold North State basketball landscape, because it is a big weekend across North Carolina. It starts tomorrow night at the MEAC Championship. North Carolina Central and Lavelle Moulton facing top seed Howard the Bison, with an automatic bid to the NCAA Tournament on the line. Meanwhile, in the American Athletic Conference Tournament, Charlotte, they are still alive. The 49ers from the Queen City facing the top-seeded USF Bulls in the semifinals, with a chance to keep their postseason run going. And coming up this weekend, we're going to talk to two newsmakers who have already punched their ticket to the big dance and the field of 68. That field, of course, will be announced on Sunday as we kick off our Bacon and Basketball Month, presented by NC Pork, right here on the North Carolina Sports Network. David Glenn will talk with High Point Panthers first-year head coach Flynn Clayman. This is an outstanding interview, and if that's not good enough, we have the head coach of the Royals of Queens University, Grant Leonard. That's coming up as well. This weekend, both Cinderella coaches from North Carolina College basketball, Flynn Clayman of High Point and Grant Leonard of Queens, right here on the North Carolina Sports Network. But why are we here in Charlotte? Why are we in the Spectrum Center again, almost at the witching hour? It's because the ACC tournament is underway, and David Glenn earlier tonight, Virginia in the first semifinal beats Miami 84-62. In the nightcap, it was Duke pulling away with ease away from the Tigers of Clemson 73-61, which means that tomorrow night, just like we talked about on Timeout with Coach Kerry Keating, we get exactly what we expected.
Yeah, Mike, and after those semifinal games where it felt like we knew pretty quickly who the better team was, and it showed on the scoreboard by halftime, and there wasn't a lot of drama in the second half, even though the score got a little closer at times. It was clear that UVA was a lot better than Miami. It was clear that Duke was a lot better than Clemson. And I don't think it's going to be as clear in Saturday night championship game, because to further set the table, not only is it the 1 seed against the 2 seed, keep in mind in the bigger picture, these are two of the top 10 ranked teams in the entire country. So it's number 1 Duke in the national rankings against number 10 Virginia in the national rankings. And to broaden that scope a little bit further, the Cavaliers have won 13 of their last 14 games, with that only defeat coming at Duke, remember, but that was when the Blue Devils were healthy, and the Devils, as we know and have discussed all week here in Charlotte, are not healthy right now, with Caleb Foster out and Patrick Ngongba out. Meanwhile, the Blue Devils have won 20 of their last 21 games. They only lost to the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill since that 1-point loss to Texas Tech way back in late December. So you got 20 of the last 21 Duke, 13 of the last 14 UVA, first and second place in the ACC. Duke won the regular season title. First-year coach Ryan Odom had Virginia there, number 2. So first and second in the regular season. 1 and 2 seeds here in Charlotte. They're the ones that play for the title on Saturday night. They're also the 2 best defensive teams in the entire ACC. They're both a little banged up, Duke more than UVA, but they play brilliant defense, sometimes even when missing key players. They're 2 of the slower-paced teams in the ACC that are going to go head-to-head for the title on Saturday night at the Spectrum Center. So I think the bottom line is going to be, after little drama on Friday here in Charlotte, we're far, far, far more likely to get more drama one way or the other on Saturday night.
Let's go back to that first semifinal on Friday night at the Spectrum Center, Virginia and Miami. The Wahoos controlled this game almost from the first minute. The Cavs closed the first half on a big run, 13-2, and took a 15-point 38-23 halftime lead. And DG, they just never looked back against Miami. 29-4, Virginia has improved to on this campaign and advances to its 11th ACC Tournament Championship game. What impressed you most about the way that Ryan Odom's team controlled this matchup with Jay Lucas's Hurricanes?
Couple things. Number one, Virginia is probably the only team in the 18-team monstrosity we know these days as the ACC that has had confidence in a 9-man rotation since way back in November and has mostly used those same 9 men in a rotation all the way through here in mid-March. Ryan Odom says he builds teams that way with intention. If you watched his VCU teams the last couple of years, he played 9 or 10 guys virtually every night. Some coaches shorten their bench, especially at this time of year. He does not. Not all 9 guys who played against NC State delivered for the Cavaliers in the quarterfinals. And maybe not all 9 were as good against Miami, but all 9 gave something. The other thing that impressed me the most was that, remember, Malik Reneau of Miami is one of the best players in this league, period. And UVA, with that two-headed monster at center, right? How many teams have a really good shot blocking and rebounding 7-footer who starts, and then a really good 7-footer who comes off the bench? Well, UVA is one of the only answers to that question in college basketball this year. Johan Grunlow is actually a little beat up right now. He's one of the best shot blockers in the entire league. But Ugo Onyenso is another of the best shot blockers in the entire league. And that guy, remember, he's a senior. This is his 3rd school. He is playing by far the best basketball of his entire life. He is not only that defensive guru who blocked 8 shots by himself against NC State. That's not a number you see from a single player in the blocked shots column very often. He's following these things up with more great defense, 3 blocks just in the first half against Miami, for example. But he's also putting up some offensive numbers to a degree that we just haven't seen from him in his 4-year career. This time it was 17 points, 5 rebounds, 4 block shots, and Ugo Onyenso, defensive specialist, was 8 of 9 from the field. So Ryan Odom had his team hitting on virtually all cylinders. And the way that great UVA defense translated, this is why I brought up Malik Reneau. Malik Reneau has dominated most of the games he's played this year offensively as an Indiana transfer. As we talked to Jay Lucas after the game, he said Malik Reneau was a good player at Indiana. We helped make him a great player here at Miami. Same with the point guard for the Hurricanes, Trey Donaldson. Good player at Michigan in his previous stops. Great player for the Hurricanes. Both of those guys were all ACC, and Reneau was first team all ACC. Well, Malik Reneau, that brilliant player for the Canes, best guy on the scouting report that Virginia had to play for, because of the big Belgian, the freshman Testa Ritter, right? A 23-year-old freshman who's physically put together. He was the primary defender at times against Malik Reneau. But when he needed help, what did he have? He had either Johan Grunlow, who again was a little bit limited because of his injury, but he had Ugo Onyenso, elite shot blocker. So Malik Reneau, one of the best scorers in this league, one of the most creative big men in this league, he did very little. Malik Reneau did not have a field goal, Mike, in the first 32 plus minutes of the game. I mean, he was 0 for 5 with about 8 minutes left in the game. By that point, we already knew UVA was going to win. So he did get, I think, 8 points or so, 6 rebounds, Malik Reneau. And again, credit to the guy. He was one of the best players in this league. I'm not beating up what he did. I'm trying to give credit to what UVA did. It's one thing to game plan for an opposing superstar. It's another thing to deliver on that game plan. It takes a village, as that old saying goes. And UVA had that village. No other team in this league has as much confidence in its top 9 players as Coach Odom does at UVA. And they needed all 9 to beat NC State. They needed 6 or 7 of them to play well to beat the number 3 seed Miami. But UVA is a really strong 2 seed. We've been at ACC tournaments where you knew number 1 was head and shoulders over number 2 or number 3 and number 4. With Duke missing Caleb Foster and Pat Ngongba, the 2 guys we saw with the big boots again today. Ngongba, again, is coming back in the NCAA tournament. Caleb Foster probably won't play, if at all, unless the Blue Devils get all the way to the Final Four. The more limited version of Duke against this confident 13 wins out of 14 version of Virginia, I think we have a whopper waiting for us in Saturday night's final, in part because the way we saw Virginia not just beat those Miami Hurricanes, but they outmatched the Hurricanes. It was 38-23 at halftime, and that's why there was so little drama in the second half.
DG, those are amazing numbers, and this will be an amazing game on Saturday night. But what about the first year for Ryan Odom? A remarkable first season on the grounds. The Cavaliers, as we said, now 29-4 overall. Odom himself has reached a conference championship game 4 straight years across his last 3 coaching stops, including at Lenoir-Rhyne University in Hickory, early in his coaching maturation. But DG, what stands out to you about the job that Ryan Odom has done here in year 1 with Virginia?
Well, one of the things he talked about is that one of the reasons he uses 9 and 10 man rotations at all of his coaching stop is because he wants guys to play to exhaustion. And if you look at the ACC leaders this year, there are guys who played 35, 36 minutes a game. I mean, regulation is only 40. So you're probably not playing every minute against your lesser opponents. That's a lot of minutes. Ryan Odom wants his best players even to average a lot less minutes than that. Why? Because he wants you to go all out all the time. In fact, even though Miami has a very good point guard in Trey Donaldson, UVA did what it often does, and that was use a full court press. Well, you can't use full court press as much as Ryan Odom likes to use the full court press unless you have 9 or 10 guys to do it. Play to exhaustion, empty the effort bucket. That's one of the reasons he has one of the best defensive teams in the ACC. That's one of the reasons he has built the deepest team, I think, in the entire ACC. So that's one part of it. But since you and I have such a good seat here on press row at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, one other thing is Coach Odom's demeanor reminds me a lot of the guy that we followed for decades, his dad, Dave Odom, longtime assistant at UVA, of course, where his son now is the head coach, also the great head coach for the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest that we got to know so well here on our various platforms across North Carolina. Dave Odom is a Southern gentleman. Doesn't mean he never argues with the referees, but he's a guy who pretty much keeps himself under control. We have coaches in this league that look like they're maniacs on the sideline. I mean, watch Pat Kelsey of Louisville sometimes. That doesn't mean he's not a good coach, but he is not afraid to emote during a game. He's not afraid to run, jump, scream, yell, bark, curse, all of the above. Ryan Odom is a lot more like his dad, Dave Odom, who has been here in Charlotte. And remember, we asked Coach Ryan Odom about spending time with his mom and dad here during this ACC tournament celebration. He's a really humble guy. He is a Southern gentleman like his dad. He calls himself a steward of the UVA program. He talked about one of his predecessors, not immediate predecessor, but another guy we got to know really well, Tony Bennett, national champion coach at UVA. Coach Odom called Coach Bennett the most humble national championship coach in the history of college basketball. And given how well we know Tony Bennett, he might be right. Ryan Odom has a lot of that humility himself. And again, that's a reflection of his family, his dad. But wouldn't it be amazing? I mean, his dad is known as that 2-time ACC champion head coach who also helped build UVA as an assistant coach. Wouldn't it be amazing if Ryan Odom, a guy who grew up as a UVA ball boy, right? Like, I mean, he's out there mopping up the floor as a kid and chasing the balls for the UVA players at the time, way back when he was a little kid. Wouldn't it be amazing if his first ACC tournament as a head coach, after attending so many with his dad or as a fan or on the sidelines, just as a young guy, wouldn't it be amazing if it's already amazing and he celebrates it that he's coaching here. But to win in your first time in the ACC tournament as a head coach, that would just be off the charts. But his roster was built intelligently, Mike, as you and I and Coach Kerry Keating talked about on our timeout program all season long. It was built with both offense and defense in mind. And Johan Grunlow and Ugo Onyensu are two of the best shot blockers in the entire country. If you beat your primary defender against UVA, you probably have a 7-footer with long arms and great timing waiting for you near the rim. And that's why UVA has the kind of defense that can match the Duke Blue Devils, who have played, for the most part, the #1 defense in all of college basketball this year.
And Duke does have the #1 player in all of college basketball, and Cameron Boozer. He was outstanding in the 73-61 Blue Devil win on Friday night over Clemson. 24 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. When Booz plays like that, DG, how difficult is Duke to beat?
Well, he's the man. He's the National Player of the Year. My ballot is waiting for me I'm a member of the United States Basketball Writers Association, so I got to do the whole Coach of the Year, All-Americans, Player of the Year. Cameron Boozer is going to get my vote. And whereas it's been hair splitting in some of my many years in those votes for National Player of the Year or some other honor, there's really no drama. Doesn't take a lot of effort, a lot of thought, a lot of analysis, a lot of research. Cameron Boozer was the best player in the country this year, and he's going to be the National Player of the Year. I even voted for him in the Sporting News Awards that Mike DeCourcy does. He asked me to be on his voting committee this year, and I believe that one's already been announced. Cameron Boozer as the Sporting News National Player of the Year. You said it. I mean, you get a double-double in points and rebounds, and people just yawn because it's Cameron Boozer, and that's what we expect. And on top of that, Mike, they're college basketball or any level of basketball players who can compile numbers. It's one thing to compile numbers. It's a very different thing to compile numbers efficiently. So when you spit out game high 24 points, game high 14 rebounds, we need to add that it was a very efficient 24 points. If you're 6 for 9 from the field, if you're 3 out of 4 from three-point land, if you're 9 out of 12 from the free throw line, you're not just compiling numbers. You are both doing quantity and quality. That's what makes you the National Player of the Year. And oh, by the way, he's a 6'9", 250-pound guy who can initiate offense from beyond the three-point line, and he's a better passer than some of the point guards in this league. I mean, he led the Blue Devils in assists. How many 6'9", 250 guys lead a great team in assists? Well, Cameron Boozer does. He had 5 in the semifinals against the Clemson Tigers to go with all those points and rebounds and efficiency. So, the bigger story of Duke's win, not because they were better players, but because there were questions about what would Duke get from some of those supplemental players. Again, we expect it from Cameron Boozer, but Jon Scheyer got a really nice lift from the brother Caden Boozer and some good minutes from Nick Hemenia. And I think that, especially after some struggles in the quarterfinals by some supplementary Duke players, it has to make them feel a lot better seeing Caden Boozer play that way, seeing Nick Hemenia play that way. I mean, Duke beat Clemson convincingly with Isaiah Evans having a bad shooting night. That says something about how good Duke is, because in some of their bigger games, they really needed Isaiah Evans shooting and scoring to get over the top. Isaiah Evans basically had a bad game, at least a bad shooting game. He did other things, hit the boards, etc., played defense. But Isaiah Evans is a great shooter, one of the better scorers and perimeter shooters in this league. He just did not have his shot today. Clemson's a great defensive team, but it didn't matter in the end. Duke still wins by 12. Duke was up by 19 at halftime. We knew that game was over. Duke was up 19 at halftime against Clemson, even though Isaiah Evans went 0 for 5 from three-point land. If you can do that when your second best player is struggling that way and your third best player, Pat Ngongba, isn't even playing, he's here as a cheerleader kind of watching from the bench with his foot boot. I mean, you're a really, really good basketball team with lots of weapons in the arsenal for Jon Scheyer if you can have one of your key guys play poorly and still post such a dominant victory.
We could talk about the depth on the court. We're talking about the depth right in front of us, David, because we're sitting right next to the Duke bench. The higher seeded team is right in front of us every game of this ACC basketball tournament, and there are over 20 people in black pullovers and slacks tonight. It looks like a machine. And where, man, everybody used to come to these ACC tournaments back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s said North Carolina under Dean Smith was like IBM. Well, that must mean that Mike Krzyzewski was Steve Jobs, and now Tim Cook's actor playing him here in Charlotte this week is Jon Scheyer, because they're a machine. They have everything taken care of. And I know you and I don't look at the same things when we go to the games, but when you look at how they are synchronized on the bench, how every timeout is mapped out, how everybody is locked in, there's not another team out of the 15 that we're here in the Queen City this week that has that type of command control. SMU will get there with Andy. And I think down the line, even the mad scientists out of Louisville will have it going for the Cards and Pat Kelsey. But man, David, it's eerily efficient to see how they go. And it doesn't mean they're unbeatable, but they're very impressive as an entire program.
Yeah, Mike, this is my 39th straight ACC tournament, and I can tell you in those 39 years, I've never seen a single school bring, let's call it, roughly 40 people to the bench for a game. Think about it. You have at least 15 players. You have the head coach and all of his assistants. That's 20-ish. And then Duke brings another 20. I mean, we're on media row. There's, every team brings that supplemental staff. You need a trainer. You always have some team managers and usually some other personnel. But whereas other schools might have 30 people in total, players, coaches, managers, support staff, Duke has 40. And it is a well-oiled machine. I mean, not only do you have the traditional roles of the head coach, the assistant coach, and every school, of course, brings a group of managers, and it is a little bit, Army-like, right, in the efficiency. If there's a full timeout, they know it. They're barking orders at each other. You got to bring chairs out for full timeouts. You don't bring chairs out for 30-second timeouts. They got whiteboards. When does the coach need this? Everything is executed with military-like efficiency. And there's even a person on Duke's staff whose job it is to eyeball the opposing coach during a game. This person obviously has studied the hand signals of the opposing coach who's facing Duke that day. And if he recognizes a hand signal from a player or a coach, he is screaming to the defensive Blue Devils what the name of that play is, because Duke has prepared for that play, whatever it is. Duke has scouted that play, whatever it is. And it helps to know what's coming, right? Like a batter in the batter's box against the pitcher. You're a better batter if you know whether it's a fastball, a slider, a curveball, or a changeup. It helps to know what offensive play is coming if you've been studying that opponent for the days or 24 hours in this case leading up to the game. So that's how well choreographed things are. There's a person whose name, only the most ardent Duke fan would even know, sitting behind the Blue Devils bench, whose job it is to steal signals. And that's not illegal, by the way. Everybody does a version of that, but that's one more example of that very large, very well-oiled machine that we call Duke basketball right now.
It's an amazing thing to watch. And having grown up here on the outskirts of Charlotte, it used to be that Charlotte was a college sports town and it was a North Carolina town. But I'll tell you, it has changed, and that has never been more apparent than this year. And talking to some of the younger members of the media contingent here and some of the fans that I've gotten to meet through various events that I've gone to down here this weekend, man, these people grew up being Duke fans, where people in our generation grew up being Carolina fans and state fans. It's flipped. And I never thought I'd say that, but in this building tonight, you could tell, man, even though Clemson is a little bit closer than Durham, they didn't have the basketball contingent in here. They've never won an ACC tournament championship, but Duke did. And this is a Duke world. And now it's the number 1 and the number 2 seed right here later tonight in Charlotte at the ACC Men's Basketball Tournament Championship, is brought to you by NCSN Live and Stitch Golf. Dress your game. And as both Virginia and Duke bring their Saturday night special outfits to the court here at the Spectrum Center, there had been 24, David Glenn, 24 ACC Tournament Championship games featuring the number 1 and the number 2 seed. Duke has appeared in 67% of those games, 16 of the 24. Virginia has appeared in 5. The two programs have met 9 times in the ACC tournament overall, including 3 times in the championship game. And interestingly, David, in 7 of those 1-2 matchups that have been played here in Charlotte, 14 have been played elsewhere in North Carolina. When the ACC's top 2 seeds meet for the championship game in the Bold North State, it usually means we are seeing 2 of the best teams in not only the Atlantic Coast Conference, but also in all of college basketball.
Yeah, that's the case this year, without a doubt. Look at the national rankings, number 1 Duke, number 10 Virginia. Look at the statistics. They're the 2 best defensive teams in conference play during this entire season. Look at the personnel, right? National Player of the Year, Cameron Boozer, but UVA has a first-team All-ACC caliber guy in Tess DeRitter at forward. Look at the coaches, what Ryan Odom has done at multiple stops, what John Shire has done in maybe the smoothest handoff ever from a legendary coach, Mike Krzyzewski, in that case, to, in his case, a mid-30s version of John Shire, who, remember, was playing in an event like this, the ACC tournament, as recently as 2010. I mean, that's only 16 years ago, and now he's not only the head coach of the Blue Devils, whom he served as an assistant coach and as a great player and as a national championship player, remember, back in 2010. He is already etching his name all over the record books, and he's only been there. This is year 4 for John Shire, and he already has multiple ACC tournament titles. He already has multiple ACC regular season titles. He already has a trip to the Final Four. He already has a couple trips to the Elite Eight. Obviously, the only thing missing from his head coaching resume is a national championship ring, and he wasn't crazy far from accomplishing that a year ago. He's got back-to-back National Players of the Year, John Shire. I mean, you can't have a much smoother handoff from 5-time national champion Mike Krzyzewski to a guy who was only in his mid-30s when he took the job. So whether you like coaches, whether you like defense, whether you like star power, whether you like future NBA players, we're going to have a little bit of all of those things when the Cavaliers and the Blue Devils get together in the championship game. And again, after some snoozers, these semifinals were predictable midway through the first half. I think we at the North Carolina Sports Network predicted that it would be UVA and Duke in this championship game. That's not exactly rocket science, of course, when they are the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed. But a lot of people liked Louisville. A lot of people liked Miami. A lot of people might thought maybe the Tar Heels or somebody else would put things together. But here we are, Duke and UVA. And because of Duke's injuries, I do think it's going to be a lot different matchup. Remember, the only time we saw these two teams collide during the regular season was at Cameron Indoor Stadium back on February 28th. So what's that? Roughly 2 weeks ago. Devils were up 15 at the half in that game. It was like these semifinal matchups that we recently watched, over by halftime for all intents and purposes. The final score in that one was Duke 77, UVA 51. I mean, that's a UVA team, again, that's 13-1 in its last 14 games. But the one was not only a loss, it was a butt kicking, 77-51. However, it's one thing to get annihilated by the fully healthy Blue Devils. These Devils are not fully healthy. And just as UVA has some minor issues with their starting center, Johan Grunlow, John Shire isn't even going to have available at all two of his 5 usual starters. That's a big deal. But in game 1, UVA couldn't run its offense very well against a Duke team that, when healthy, was the number 1 defense in the country. The Cavaliers shot 29% from the field in that game and 20% from three-point land. I know the Cameron crazies were there, and lots of teams go into Cameron and just get swallowed by both that defense and the hostile environment. But that was as poorly as UVA played all season long. And not only did they get swallowed by the Duke defense, they couldn't shut down the Blue Devils. Duke shot almost 50% from the field and 50% from three-point range in that matchup. Isaiah Evans was actually great against UVA during the regular season. So we'll see how he bounces back from his poor shooting in the semifinals. Cameron Boozer, as usual, was also great in that regular season matchup against UVA. But I'm not sure how many conclusions we can draw from that regular season matchup, right? I mean, when UVA spanked NC State twice during the regular season, we could draw a lot from that. We were going to be shocked if the Wolfpack somehow had upset UVA earlier this tournament after the butt kickings that the Pack took at the hands of the Cavaliers. So you could draw a lot from regular season performance in some of these other matchups that we have correctly predicted earlier in this tournament. I think you have to throw Duke's 77-51 win at Cameron 2 weeks ago kind of out the window, because it's just going to be a different rotation. Darren Harris is not yet a fully confident guy for the Blue Devils off the bench, and that means there's 6 guys that John Shire feels good about. And one of those 6, Caden Boozer, had a bad game in the quarterfinals against Florida State. So you still have Cam Boozer, and that's a heck of a starting point, right? You still have Isaiah Evans, who far more often than not is a heck of a wing scorer. But it's just far less predictable than what Duke did to UVA on February 28th, and that should make it a lot of fun for whoever might have been disappointed by the lack of drama in Friday's semifinals. I'll be shocked if we don't have some back and forth, sit on the edge of your seats anticipation on Saturday night here at the Spectrum Center.
Basketball nights in the bold North State? They're built on passion, tradition, and the best barbecue and bacon in America. Our pig farmers deliver the smoky, savory flavors fans love while contributing more than $10 billion to the North Carolina economy. So every time you crush a pulled pork sandwich at halftime or grab a crispy strip of bacon before tip-off, remember the farmers who make it possible. North Carolina pork, good for the plate, great for the state. Learn more at ncpork.org.
Some places don't just serve food, they feel like home. That's the Original Saltworks on Oleander Drive in Wilmington, owned and operated by Bob Hubbard, and part of the daily rhythm of the Wilmington Beach community for decades. It's the kind of place where breakfast turns into lunch, conversations last a little longer, and the menu feels familiar. Eggs fixed your way, grits or hash browns, omelets, waffles, and cinnamon French toast. Then there are the lunches people come back for: homemade chicken salad, crab cake sandwiches, and classic burgers. They're open 7 in the morning through 3 in the afternoon at 6301 Oleander Drive. The Original Saltworks. Good food, good people. Just like home.
Two guys who will be getting their teams ready this weekend to find out where they're going to be playing in the field of 68 are Flynn Clayman of High Point and also Grant Leonard of Queens. David, you had a chance to talk to them earlier this week as we were here in Charlotte as part of our Stitch Golf provided ACC tournament coverage. Man, the Baltimore State, we got some good teams, and Leonard and Clayman, they brought a lot to these interviews. These are fascinating listens.
They did. And shout out to both of those universities, both of those athletic departments, both of those coaches, because they get truly 100+ demands for their time at this time of year. Once you punch your ticket to the big dance, they don't have to say yes. I think both of those guys spent, 30 minutes each with us here at the North Carolina Sports Network on the David Glenn Show episodes that are going to air here shortly. And there's a lot of great storylines, right? I mean, High Point, Flynn Clayman is the new head coach there, but they have had a 3-year run. First, Coach Clayman was the assistant to Alan Huss, who's now at Creighton, his alma mater. But they have kept that drum beating without skipping a beat. Win the Big South again, have one of the most efficient offenses in the entire country again, have a lot of great stories on that roster for Flynn Clayman. And he's also a guy who, just to foreshadow some of the stuff we get into, his wife is a women's basketball coach at High Point. And they previously worked at another school where he was part of the men's staff and she was part of the women's staff. And they have a small child and they have another child on the way. I mean, as much as we hear about the crazy schedules of college coaches, how does it work when both husband and wife are full-time college basketball coaches? Now, it's at the same university, in this case, High Point. But we get into some of that personal stuff. We get into some of the how did High Point go from almost a quarter century of never making the NCAA tournament to, at this point, back-to-back trips to the NCAA tournament. And a lot of people think they're going to be a dangerous team with a chance to win in the round of 64 and who knows beyond, despite the fact that 4 of their key players from last year at High Point, one's in the G League now as a professional, one's at Baylor, one's at UNLV, one's at Ole Miss. How do you lose 4 of your 5 starters, get raided in the portal, so to speak, have another guy just move on to the pros, and yet not miss a beat? Well, we dig into all those with Flynn Clayman of High Point, and Grant Leonard of Queens was a lot of fun as well. This is a guy who's a basketball lifer. I mean, not crazy long ago, he was an NAIA basketball player at the college level, basketball player. And then he was running basketball camps in his original hometown of Chicago. And then he was at the Division III level. And then he was at the Division II level. And now here he is not only at the Division I level, but as a head coach at Queens University here in Charlotte, that this was the first year because of their transition from Division II that they were even eligible to go to the postseason. So in their first year of eligibility, they win the Atlantic Sun Conference Tournament. They punch their ticket as the automatic bid holder for the A-Sun. And Coach Leonard's a lot of fun, by the way. He's the guy that's been on social media taking shots at Auburn for having an assistant coach at a Queens basketball game who not only was there essentially trying to recruit a future transfer off of the Queens roster, but actually initiated a conversation. You and I are here, 10 feet from the court. This Auburn assistant coach was that close to the court at a Queens game not crazy long ago and started talking to the guy that he's hoping to try to convince to transfer to Auburn at some point. Coach Grant Leonard of Queens was not happy about that. So we got into that, and they have a trophy dog called Buddy the Street Dog. So we get into who's Buddy the Street Dog, why does he represent, or what does he represent about Queens basketball. You can win the Street Dog of the Game honor if you play for the Queens Royals. So they have great stories too. And again, between the two of them, they spend an hour with us roughly here on the North Carolina Sports Network. So Coach Leonard, by the way, is famous for ugly sweaters. So we get into, of course, the basketball and how these great stories happened, but we get to know the guys a little bit better beyond basketball as two of these great mid-major stories in not only North Carolina, but the entire country this year. And Mike, I'll throw out that number we've mentioned on previous shows. The most teams our state has ever sent to any single NCAA tournament in a single year is 6. Well, we know High Point's going, auto bid. We know Queens is going, auto bid. We know Duke is going, number 1 seed. We know Carolina's going. We know NC State's going. So that's 5. And meanwhile, we still have, as you mentioned to start today's show, we still have the Charlotte 49ers playing in the American Conference semifinals. They have a tough assignment in the semis, so we'll see. But they have a chance. And we have our old friend Lavelle Moten at NC Central playing in the MEAC championship game. That, too, is against the number 1 seed, so we'll see if the Eagles can survive. Unfortunately, they're missing their star big man to an injury, which just kills me because I wouldn't bet against Lavelle Moten if he had a fully healthy roster. One last thing on that topic, by the way, there's a Division II transfer. You, Mike Waddell, love when guys come from within the North Carolina high school ranks. Mike is a North Carolina native, loves to call our great state the bold North State. NC Central has a little point guard named Gage Lattimore. He starred at Ben L. Smith High School in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he started his college career at the Division II level. Now, he's the best player on NC Central at the Division I level. He has been among the MEAC's leading scorers all year long, around 17 points a game. He's a really good three-point shooter. He hits almost 90% of his free throws. This dude is just fun to watch. He's small, but he's kind of a combo guard. He might even be more of a shooter than he is a point guard. His lack of height is why he had to start at the D2 level, but he did so well there that Lavelle Moten took a chance on him at NC Central, and he has been rewarded for that. Coach Moten, of course, is also a state of North Carolina guy, high school in Raleigh, legend in many Raleigh communities, and right down the road in Durham. After being a star player at NC Central, he is now in his 17th year leading that Eagles program. So, again, tough assignment. Howard is the number 1 seed in that league, the MEAC. The Eagles are missing their best big man. I don't know how that's going to translate, but credit to NC Central for making the MEAC championship game. And if either Charlotte or Central somehow gets the auto bid in their league, we would get to 6 or who knows, even 7. Which if 7 teams from one state went to the NCAA tournament, that would tie the record for any state in a single NCAA tournament just in the history of that event, which dates to like the 1930s. So we are a great college basketball state. We know that. We'll have at least 5 representatives in the big dance. We get to host, the Queen City of Charlotte gets to host this ACC title game on Saturday night, but there's even a bigger stage that awaits at least 5 of our teams in state, and who knows, maybe we'll get a 6th in there and tie our all-time record in that regard.
Well, some other basketball news that was made in the Twin Cities of Winston and Salem today at the Joel Coliseum. Boy, the biggest upset of the year in North Carolina basketball, as Salisbury, that needed a big half-court shot to win their regional championship, They beat Reedsville by 15, 83-68 in the 4A state championship game. This was both emphatic and symbolic, DG, as the Hornets didn't just win the title, they ended the Rams' bid for a third straight state championship and finally flipped a rivalry that had caused them repeated postseason play. Brandon Taylor for Salisbury, 29 points in this game. Deontay Neal, the Gatorade Basketball Player of the Year in the state, earlier this week had to decommit from UNC Greensboro because they're looking for a new head coach. He didn't want to hang out with that. He is also the state high school quarterback. This guy was everything. He was quarterback, wide receiver. He's just a great athlete. This kid is a stud, but big news right there. And in case you didn't even know this, and this is the most impressive story I think I've looked at the last 2 years by an athlete here in North Carolina, Jocelyn Stamper. You got to know that name. It's like the first time you heard Carl Lewis or Michael Jackson. Jocelyn Stamper is a great athlete out of Cherokee. Her team won their state championship, their third in a row, 73-15 this week. And I'm telling you, this kid is a great volleyball player, a great track and field athlete. She can throw, she can run, and she is a hell of a basketball player too. And she's only a high school junior. So the Bold North State is replete with basketball excellence. That's why we call March and April Bacon and Basketball Month. Is brought to you by NC Port. David Glenn, we only have a few more hours, so we have to be back. So we'll put a tie on this one. Again, catch those Flynn Clayman and Grant Leonard interviews right here on the North Carolina Sports Network. And DG, we'll see you tomorrow night right back here for the Wahoos and the Blue Devils.
Thank you, my friend, and best wishes to a couple of our other friends in the coaching community as we wrap up. As the carousel continues to spin, remember our very good friend, former Duke player and former Duke assistant coach Jeff Capel, ended up getting year number 9 with the Pitt Panthers. A lot of folks thought he was going to get fired. He gets one more year. He has a good recruiting class coming in, so we certainly wish him well. And as we say goodbye to Mike Jones at UNC Greensboro, and we wish well another old friend, Wes Miller is out at Cincinnati. So that crazy carousel continues to spin. But I look forward to seeing you back here at the Spectrum Center on Saturday night. Did you know, Mike, the same two schools that decided the ACC football championship are deciding the ACC basketball championship? That doesn't happen in the same year very often. Same two schools, two different sports, both in the championship game. It's not a long list because most schools are good at one or the other. This particular year, Duke and UVA were the last two standing in football. We were there in Charlotte, here in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium for that one. And now it's Duke and UVA, the last two standing in men's basketball as well. I don't know off the top of my head how many times that's happened in 73 years of ACC history, but I can promise you it's not very often.
Well, I'll tell you, at no point in the history of the Bold North State has a team in the ACC won women's basketball conference championship tournament, the men's basketball championship tournament, then the football championship game, then the women's championship game, and then the men's championship game. Duke is riding a 4-championship streak heading into Saturday night. That is a hell of a statement for Duke athletics right now. They totally own this conference. People wouldn't think that from the outside, but when you look at the numbers, they're good in about everything, and that is a real credit to Nina King and everybody over at Duke Athletics. They pretty much, in very short order, I mean, we talk about John Shire taking over for Coach K. How about Nina King taking over from Kevin White? And that is a pretty big jump right there on the administrative side. So congratulations to Duke. For DG, I'm Mike. We're out. Hey, good morning. It's Saturday morning. It's time to crown a champion in Charlotte.
This is the North Carolina Sports Network. From the high country to the Outer Banks, on courts, fields, and fairways, we tell the stories of the bold North State. Follow us on social media at the NC Sports Net. We're the exclusive home of The David Glenn Show, coach-driven analysis of football and basketball. A look at the past with This Was Then. Inside NIL with Court Vision, the North Carolina Sports Awards, aka the Pineys, and the Old North State Tailgate, where we are on the ground at North Carolina's top events. Our foundational partner is NC Pork, raising the bacon, raising the bar. Telling the stories of the bold North State. Experience matters. This is NCSN, the North Carolina Sports Network.